Well, hello and welcome to Young Black and in Business with myself, Anelisa. Today's guest is my favorite. I mean, I say that about all my guests. But she is in the business of sports communication. That's how I frame it. But she's a small giant. She's a small giant. She's a giant, but she's a small giant. And I say small because she's tiny in size, but like she is a Wonder Woman. That's what I call her. In studio with me, I'm joined by Sibabalwe Sesmani. She's the group CEO at Unorthodox Group. Siba, okay, wait, let me drop actually. Siba, guys, manages big shots like your Lukanya Jaden Hendricks and Babalo Lacha. So these are like serious sports woman and man. And you are right there. I mean, I'm sure the ladies want to know. But yeah, Siba, welcome to Young Black and in Business. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I mean, I guess the first point for me, let's start on what drew you to sports management and sports communication. How do you get there?
The sports side of it was completely by mistake. I got into public relations and communications actually about 11 years ago now.
Sure.
Just doing corporate public relations. So just facilitating media interviews, your press releases, your statements, crisis management. And, I've realized recently it's gotten better, but I've actually realized people don't know the difference between public relations and being someone's manager.
Yeah.
So that's actually how sport came about. Someone on LinkedIn saw that I do public relations and I've been in the public relations space. They then introduced me to a client of theirs who's an athlete to manage. So I said, first and foremost, listen, I have no experience in sport. Besides going and watching a really great derby day or going somewhere for pre-drinks for our national team, I don't have much sporting knowledge.
Yeah.
But I can try and incorporate the corporate PR knowledge that I have. And let's see. But as long as I've laid my tables on the card, I've been fully transparent. And it was an experiment that worked out really well.
I mean, yeah, now. But I mean, how do you then grow from that first client into where you are today? Because your business. I mean, I'll let you speak for it, but you run a fully functioning group because you've got different offerings.
No, that's correct. So I think with us and starting with working with individuals, because on the public relations side, we still work with companies. We don't do PR for individuals, is that I started seeing those individuals as businesses, and of which they are businesses actually. Besides their incomes that they get from their salaries, they have all of these other deals that are coming as passive income.
Yeah.
So they also have clients. So that is actually a business, either a service or product business, depending on how you view it. So me thinking about those personalities in that manner, it almost seemed like it was an extension of PR, because it is. Yeah. It's just that it's a different platform using as an individual as a form of PR. So over time, it was an extension, but there were also so many things that I had to learn with an individual versus a client. A client, you can start with them at 9 a.m. and at 5 p.m. you're done with a corporate company. But with sports, it's 24/7. Things happen, how they play during a match, if they're injured or not. There's so much more in-depth that goes into it. And there's a lot more time and a lot more emotions that get into it over a company that has an established company culture and a company profile. Because with an individual, you start a company culture based on their personality.
Yeah. I think you've mentioned this there's a huge difference between managing artists or athletes and running PR. Maybe give us a differentiator. How do those two differentiate? But also, what is the merging point? What is the common ground for those?
So the common ground is that I would say the reach. Whether you're an artist, if you're a really popular one, or you're an athlete, a really popular one, you have the reach, and the demographics are different. So depending on the product or the brand that wants to work with either an artist or an athlete, they'll just have to see what are their demographics. Is it LSM 124, or is it okay, now I'm speaking a bit of jargon.
You're speaking a bit of tone down, please.
Okay, let me bring it back. And that's what I do for a living. I simplify all of those messages for the masses. So I mean, in terms of brand reach, I think those are the similarities. Who do you want to speak to your target audience? But then where it comes into play, and this is my biggest fight at the moment, is that athletes are not content creators. So an athlete's value is putting their face on a billboard, putting their face on a TVC, or making them come to an event that will physically draw out a crowd.
Yep.
Now, expecting them to sit and edit and find angles and take pictures, that's not what they're supposed to do. So at this point in time, I'm fighting with a lot of campaigns saying that you need to use both content creators and athletes. Athletes are not going to sit and edit and do all of these things and then voiceovers and
no.
But also that's not what they're supposed to do. And you're not maximizing on their strengths. Now, using a combination of an athlete and a content creator goes a long way, because then the content creator will actually create the content that you need, the cool content that you are paying them for. And therefore you can then take that content and give it to the athlete to post. So there's so many differences, and knowing those things is important, because trust me, if I say to Luca, take a picture of a water bottle, that picture is going to come out looking so different.
Because that's not...
They are used to being captured, whether it's for a documentary, whether they're playing on the field. They're used to being told what to do and how to do it. Not that they must come up with the creativity part of it. The only time they are creative is when they are doing their jobs, which is being on the field and making sure that we remain World Cup winners.
Look, I mean, it's an interesting one, because it leads into my next point. And I think you've touched briefly on this challenge, but I think there's other challenges that you face, not only as a business, but as a woman in this space. Maybe let's unpack those. Don't want to assume.
You can assume, and your assumption is right.
I'm sure my assumptions are right, but you are a woman. Two, you're a Black woman as well. Mm-hmm. And you're young.
Black.
That's also that element as well. So take us through your challenges, and I really do not want to assume.
And I'm also short, right? So apparently when you're short, you look younger than your actual
You do look
age.
young, eh? So, I don't even want to ask how old you are.
You know, I'm still classified as youth. The proper classification, not the political youth. But anyway, so I'm always very honest about this part of it, because there's so many opportunities in sport for women, but women need to know exactly what they're getting themselves into. So whether you are behind the scenes like ourselves, whereas we manage sports athletes and we source them brand endorsement deals, or whether you're on the field, or whether you're in administration in sport, as long as you're a woman, you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
It is not a comfortable or conducive environment to be in for women, but you are seeing changes. Now, in the sports code that I decided to go into, you know, it's also, you mentioned it, also being a woman of this race.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't see a lot of Black women within that sporting code behind the scenes as well. So it's a lot of adjustment. You're entering cliquey environments. I will not lie to you. And
it's a boys' club.
It is a boys' club. And the worst thing you can do is get into those environments and beg. You need to know your value. Yeah. You need to demand and you need to command your space. That's actually where I saw the respect element shifting. Yeah. And now we work with a lot of males that are not Black within that space, because they see the value that I bring. Yeah. And I see the value that they bring with the years that they've been in the sport. So especially these last 18 months, I've seen a lot of collaboration with people and men and different races within that sport, because they realize that there's so much more that we can benefit from each other by working together instead of being scared and threatened.
But how do you get through to, I mean, you didn't become Sibabalwe overnight. You've only, everybody that's in sport right now knows exactly who you are. But how do you get to where you are today? Despite of everything, take us through that journey, because I think somebody's watching this and they're thinking, oh, this is going to happen for me. I'm going to get there either way. But what is the journey, and how do you get yourself here? Because I hear that you add value, but how do you get to the stage where you do add value? What are the tools?
Okay. Well, I pray a lot. I believe in God, and I do believe that God has a purpose for me. And I think I prayed a lot about my purpose and how to use everything that He's given me to get to where I am. So it's mentally exhausting as well to try and go into an industry or try to do something that's never been done. Yeah. Because 5 years ago, I could safely say that we are one of the first agencies that formally commercialized athletes' brands. Prior to that, when you would see, Captain won us the World Cup not too long ago with the Lay's advert. that we all know. That wasn't something that was that a manager sat down and thought of and pitched.
Yeah.
It was incidental. It came from Lace. What we are doing is that we are we're very intentional about what we want to do with our clients. And especially the biggest part of it is helping them plan for retirement. So the value, I guess, and how I got to a point where I now say I've got value to bring to the table is collaborations and learning. There's so many occasions where I picked up the phone with people and I said, I want to do this and I'm doing it for free. And what I want in return, I want access to markets. I want a network. I want to learn. How do you do X, Y, and Z? You do not have to pay me. Even now, there's a lot of work that I still do where I say, you don't have to pay me. I just want the knowledge.
I mean, you're a legend and you still do that.
Because you're always aiming for higher and higher, right, as a person. And every time you get to a higher level, there's certain things that you don't know, that you need experiences on. And you always need to be humble to say that the more I learn, the more I realize I actually don't know that much. So a constant attitude of learning and reskilling and upskilling, but also collaborations, it's not always competition.
Yeah.
And competition is healthy when it's done right, but it's constant learning and collaborating with other people that are doing the exact same thing as you and not being intimidated that they might be better.
There's my favorite saying that says, there is no competition at the top.
Yes.
We only collaborate.
We collaborate.
And I think you've mastered that art.
Thank you.
I mean, this then leads into the next point, which is how do you then, athletes are very handy. They're quite a handful. How do you balance managing this woman and man? They've got big personalities. They've got big brands. How do you manage that? Because you're quite humble as well.
I think there's something about... Again, it just goes back to God. We've just been so fortunate with having clients that have amazing heads on their shoulders.
Yep.
They disciplined, they know what they want, but they also know what they are good at and they know where their weaknesses are. And they respect you coming in as a person who's got a certain expertise or skill. So as long as they know that their vision and our vision matches, there's always been that trust.
Yeah.
I've never had any issues with any of the athletes that we've worked with. I mean, the ones that you mentioned are the ones we have exclusive contracts with, but we basically have worked with most of our national team rugby players.
Name drop.
Gosh.
I'm sorry.
Your faves that are currently playing. And
Don't get the favors up.
Black, white, colored, which was really great because at the beginning it was mostly the black guys that we work with. But over time we've worked with the agents who work with them in order for us to be able to do work with them and us also developing our own relationships with the players themselves, whether we've got exclusivity contracts or not. So that's really been amazing. The guys' sport, especially the sporting code that I'm in, I think there's so much discipline and it doesn't just stop when they get off the field. In their personal lives as well, they show that discipline. In their interactions with people, they show that discipline and respect.
Yeah.
So that culture that they build within their teams translates to every area of their life. So it's made our job so much easier. I
mean, your business is I'd like to think that you've got an effective and efficient system. What is your strategy? What is your business strategy? Because I think the last time I saw you was probably 5 years ago.
Yes.
And you've grown massively since then. And I mean, when I see people, I keep tabs on all my people. And I'm just love to see you there. But what's your strategy?
Oh, I think we just have a growth mindset.
Yeah.
I'm very fixated with growing and I'm a bit obsessed with growing and being the best in whatever it is that I do.
Yeah.
So you'll find that I'll reach a certain level that I thought was my best and I'll see that there's so much more that can be done. So it's a constant checking in. It's having those targets. It's seeing how you can maneuver. It's seeing the resources that we have. And I think I've been focusing a lot on efficiency lately, which is actually looking back at the partnerships that we've built and seeing again, how do we collaborate so that we can actually do less and leverage off what other partners can bring in. So I think efficiency has been a big thing for us because it takes a lot of time. It's time consuming. Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, there are no business hours. There are no close off business or between Monday to Friday, 9 and 5, there's none of that. You constantly switched on because also in as much as there's a lot of pros to it. There are a lot of cons. You can wake up in the morning and your client is trending. Thank God that hasn't happened. So there are those things that you anticipate on top of the fact that you have strategies for all of your clients, but you always need to have a crisis management strategy as well. How do you deal with that? How do you keep these people relevant? How do you then go back and speak to sponsors? Because if you are my client, for instance, and you mess up, I have to then go back to the sponsor and be like, I'm so sorry on her behalf. But I also have to maintain that relationship because you're not my only client. So I have to ensure that if one client messes up, we go back to the sponsors and they trust us as a company and see that it was that client who was at fault, not us, so that they still trust us, they still work with us because we value long-term relationships.
I think you've touched on my next point, because I think my next point was going to be building relationships in the space that you're in. How important is that? And how do you maintain and sustain? Because the business that we're in is a business of relationships.
No, everything is relationships. I mean, someone who's very wealthy actually said to me, you don't get a lot of work done at the office. You leave the office as much as you can. Be in the streets, be in the coffee shops, fly to wherever. That's where you do business. Go to people, meet them where they are. That already creates a sense of trust and it puts you on a different pedestal than, if you're on a Teams call. Initially, there's nothing wrong to sustain the relationship if you can't meet physically, but meeting people where they are and starting that relationship, it brings a lot of trust and also brings a lot of long-term. And it really is relationships. It's also about, even if you've had a conflict with someone in the past, the conflict doesn't have to be bad to a point where you don't speak. No. It's very important to be emotionally secure as well and emotionally intelligent and knowing how to deal with situations. Yeah. And it's not nice being the bigger person, but sometimes you have to be the bigger person.
I suffer from not being a bigger person.
There's someone actually in the sports space that I had a huge fallout with. Got to a point we blocked each other and very well-known person as well. And a client requested them a couple of weeks ago. And I swallowed my pride and I said, hi, how are you? We have a client that's looking for XYZ. He's like, sure. And we carried on. Because at the end of the day, it's business. Yeah. I can't go back to the client and say, this is a horrible person. No, that's got nothing to do with it. I've got a client. They've got certain objectives that need to be met and we will make sure they're met. And that person also understands that because they weren't funny when I reached out. They know exactly what I do. I know exactly what he does and his reach and how important he is.
And that's it. Sure. Do you know what? That takes I guess that's the nature of business as well. Yes, we understand the business as well. I consider you as probably one of the strongest voices in sports PR and management, right? And so you do have a bit of an upper hand in terms of maybe and answering this one, because what are some of the challenges that you realize when you get a client, for example, that's in the sporting space? I think challenges is the right word. This is this big sports person. They've got the talent. But where do they fall short? I think there's a conversation that we're currently having in arts, and I mean, that's a completely different field, but where people retire either broke or they die and somebody comes out in the public to say this person. So every industry, every talent basically has their own individualized challenges. Yes. And I think sportsmen have their fair share of those challenges. Maybe you can take us through those and what the role of having a good manager and a good spokesperson and a good PR brand man,
Firstly, I think, I'm not trying to be biased or anything, but I think having a woman manager is the best thing ever for an athlete.
We're the best at everything.
Right? I think some of our clients have literally gotten a lot of good brand endorsement deals because I'm a woman.
Yeah.
We look at things that are beyond your fitness levels. So, they're athletes. Obviously, they have to look at stats. What does the scale say? How fit are they? What is their lung capacity? And all sorts of things. It's very tangible things, very practical things. But being in sport, or actually even being a musician and being at the best, and consistently being at the best that you can possibly be, is very psychological. So part of being a good manager, I would say, is not only focusing on the field, which is great because that's what built your brand, but also in order for you to operate and optimally as an athlete, your mind needs to be in the right space. Yep. Now, sport is very cutthroat, right? Very, very cutthroat. And I'm not quite sure when it comes to psychologists and therapists if that's have to. But with being a manager, you have to realize that even though your athletes might agree or not, you need to start introducing things such as seeing a therapist.
Yeah.
Or seeing a psychologist, especially in the transition that we're now seeing, especially in the rugby space, that guys are coming from poverty, very poor backgrounds, and now you thrust into the spotlight and you're seeing money that you've never seen before, and it's real money. It's not just coming from 0 rand to 10,000 rand a month. No, it's real money. So what is your relationship with money? Your financial literacy. I mean, you touched on it now that in different industries, but it's actually happened even in sport.
Sure.
In the sports that I'm predominantly in, and in soccer, where people go broke or they retire, or they die and they've got nothing to their names. That's a big thing. So what I'm seeing now and what we're actively doing is that from when you sign up with us at Unorthodox Sport as an athlete, we actually work backwards. We want to know what would happen if you were ever injured. What are your plans when you retire? And we work backwards. So some of them already have wealth advisors. We're seeing a totally different crop of athletes.
Is it?
They already have financial advisors. They've got wealth advisors. They're
That's
looking
actually
at
beautiful
businesses.
to hear.
They're diversifying in the peak of their careers. There are some soccer guys that we affiliated with, and you sit there and you just listen to the conversations. Brilliant minds. They're curious. They don't mind consulting. They bounce off ideas. They realize that they've got so much money right now just from their salaries, but also all these other endorsement deals, and seeing how they can seal their futures because there have been so many of those disastrous stories. So being a manager is not just about sourcing the brand endorsement deals, but it's also sourcing the right kind of long-term partnerships that even when these guys are not playing, they will still be there. But also it's about taking care of your athlete from a psychological point of view, checking in, are you okay? Is everything fine? Is the family fine? There's so much more. You need to see the person as a person and not just an asset or product that you have to sell, because essentially you're selling them.
I think it's actually so interesting that this is, I mean, you mentioned your space, but this is sportsmen have always been, I don't want to say accused because I don't think it's false, of not having the right order to retire comfortably. And I think it's a retirement planning with sportsmen is such an important part of this conversation.
Crucial.
And I mean, if you've got any insights that you can share with us, would be interesting.
No, crucial. In the rugby space, they actually make provisions for retirement in the contracts. So you can already see that they thought about that. But what I'm seeing in the soccer space is that they are starting to do that. Some of our local clubs are starting to partner up with financial service providers for the athletes themselves. But it's still largely dependent on the athlete if they will make the time to meet with that financial advisor or the wealth advisor. So the resources are there. These things are being seen, because it's also not good PR for these clubs when they have a retired athlete who's broke, because you as an aspiring,
was it?
Yes. So you as an aspiring young soccer player, you see the story and you're like, oh, I don't want to go to that club because so-so was in that club and then they ended up being poor. So they realize that it's good PR for them, for their athletes to retire comfortably, or if and when they get injured, to make sure that they're fully and well taken care of. So those things they're starting to come up a lot. And the beautiful thing about South Africa, which is I always say, and this goes across business in general, across all industries, is that we don't have to, what is the saying? We don't have to recreate the wheel or something. Yeah. But basically, we don't have to come up with anything new. We just refine ideas and we personalize them. So we see a lot of the brand endorsement deals with athletes in the US. We can copy and paste the same thing, but make sure that it's palatable and it's suited and personified for the South African market. But really, everything that you want to do or aspire to do has already been done. It's just about you adopting it and just making sure that it works in the market that you operate in.
Sure. We are approaching a bit of close, but I think I've got 3 more questions. 2, 1. The first question for me is, somebody's watching this or listening to us and they're thinking, it's either they want to get into the sports management side of things or the PR, sports PR. I want to call it sports communication because I think that's the umbrella term. They want to get into that, right? And not necessarily as a business, but like just want to get into it as they want to start as a manager. They want to be. What makes a successful sports communicator?
Oh.
Maybe you can, because again, your journey is an interesting one, because you didn't start with sports. You started maybe you can start us on the broader scale and then get into the sports, because I stand by this. You're probably one of the top 5 successful Black women in the space.
Thank you.
So what makes you successful? Basically, we're giving away your trades. But like what that person who wants to be you, not you. I don't like it when somebody says that.
Yes, because
but he wants to be like you, who wants to not necessarily, I mean, I think the fame part of it is coming up later, but Tinabanbe industry, we know who you are. But I think I really want us to touch on what makes a successful sports communicator.
Sure. I think networking aggressively.
Yeah.
Something that I did even with starting the public relations company and not having any contacts in media because I actually study economics and econometrics.
Story for another day, but like...
for another day.
I'm one of those people as well. So.
But even then, I had zero contacts in media, but I made sure I went to media briefings. What kind of media? I would call that 011 line before I knew that actually journalists don't mind being WhatsApped or being called, because I was such a professional person. I don't want to come to your personal space. But honestly, aggressively networking got us the media contacts that we have in the public relations space, the brand partnerships that we've managed to get and sustain, because some of them have been for the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Some of them have ended 2 or 3 years ago, but you find that we still do campaigns with them, even though we don't have long-term contracts. So the biggest thing for me is definitely networking and valuing people.
Yeah.
The real currency is humans. And in any business, I think that the real currency is humans, and just ensuring that you are networking, you're talking to people on the ground, you're in touch with knowing what's happening on the ground, but also the people that sign the checks and make the checks. So you're kind of like in between. You're constantly going up and down. The people at the top signing the checks, but also at the bottom, keeping a pulse on what's actually going on.
Okay, don't worry about that. Such a good soundbite though. Now we've touched on what makes a successful sports communicator, right? And you work closely with rugby players, athletes. You've got a couple of I'll call them associates on the soccer side as well.
Yes.
There's somebody that wants to be a successful sportsman. What do you think makes a sportsman successful, especially the ones that you've worked with?
Like on the field? On the field, off the field, because I also think on the field is influenced by off the field, and off the field influences on the field. So discipline and respect.
Yeah.
I could be an amazing manager, be very well networked, land a big brand endorsement deal campaign, have one of my athletes on the set. But if they are disrespectful, if they have big egos, no one is going to want to work with them again. And the industry is so small. So for us, the fact that the guys are disciplined on and off the field, they're respectful on and off the field, it always keeps our clients coming back.
Yep.
So I think also with them and the teams that I've seen when they are in a team set up with the coaches, the one thing that the coaches always talk about is respect and discipline. So they carry that throughout their lives, and it helps us as well. Like we have so many brands that come back after we're done shooting a campaign, and they say, oh my gosh, these guys are such big stars, but they're so respectful, they're so humble, they chatty, they're not divas at all. We definitely want to work with that person again. Even if they haven't been playing and they were injured, they're like, we loved working with him so much, please, we'd love to work with him again. So that actually what I believe is the bulk of their success. It's not really in the stats. Yes, they've made a very good name on themselves on the field, but definitely the discipline and the respect side of things, being able to relate to people.
Yeah. You know what? That's what I'm sneaking it in for the ladies.
Oh no.
I have to. It would be a disservice. Let's hear this one. But how is it like working with hot men? I'm being messy. This is a business podcast. We are not in the business of talking heads. Here, we talk about business-related content. But I have to say this one.
It's turning into that other podcast. I didn't say names.
But you know what? I just on a lighter note. It's like, I have to ask, it would be such a disservice. I know there's somebody who's like, are you going there?
On a lighter note, I think luckily for me, and that's why I feel as though I'm so aligned with where I am and I'm supposed to be where I am, is that I've never been one to be physically attracted to people.
Is it?
I think what is that name? We have names where we can say pure sexual.
Yes.
I just sit down with you, have a conversation with you, see your vision for your life, see if there's actually something going on up there. That's me. And then from there I will be attracted to you. So you see all these guys, and I mean I'm a very short girl, I'm 148 centimeters to put things into context. These guys are averaging between 1.8 and 2 meters, and that's my type. I don't know what it is about a really short woman, but that is my type.
Oh no, I know your type.
So you work with these people and they're very good looking men. And then you sit down with them and you have conversations and you find out how smart they are as well. But it's the fact that we know that we've got a working relationship. They trust that as well. No boundaries are ever crossed. And it just became easier. You get to know people and they become so ordinary. If you started working with Beyonce today, maybe in the first 2 weeks, you wouldn't believe it whenever you have to go to work.
I'll stick to business content.
But after like a month, if you'd ever work with Aliko Dangote or whoever that you really admire within the business space. Okay. But after spending lots of time with people and literally talking to people every day, you start admiring them because of who they are rather than what they look like. But we are humans at the end of the day. God did give us eyes you can appreciate, but you're like, we're at work here.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'll survive in sports in that guys. Like, type was Amazon as a good sport.
And you really would, because you'd work. That's your office.
Okay, that's true. Yeah. But also, I think when you take yourself, you hold yourself in such a high regard. You want these people around you to also take that into consideration. Yes. So it was a silly question. I hope nobody thinks that I'm disrespecting Usiba on this one, guys.
Not at all.
Like I think it was necessary to ask how it's like to work with hot people. But yeah, I think before we wrap it up, I always hand it over to my guests. If there is one form of wisdom, if there's wisdom you'd like to share with somebody that's watching or listening to us and they're thinking, this woman has walked such a long but beautiful journey. And I think because you're right at the finishing line, nobody really knows how long it took you to get here and what those obstacles were. If there is one lesson that you've learned in your journey, what is it? And how do those lessons or that particular lesson contribute to the person that you've become?
One thing I would say is just do it. And I'm not a brand ambassador of anything or anyone. I am not a brand ambassador. But the simplest pieces of advice are usually the most that have the most bearing or that have the most depth.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about you and your podcast and the fact that, it took you so long to get here, but you ended up getting here.
Yep.
And it is just about doing something. You will never be perfect. You're always learning on the go. When you think you've got a formula, there's something more that you can still learn.
Yep.
So it's just about doing it and just those constant improvements every single day, no matter how small, how big, but that consistency and just starting. You'll figure it out as you go. And as women, we also have this thing that we always want things to be perfect. And you find that we sometimes don't strive for those things. We end up not doing what we want to do because we're scared that it won't be perfect. And this is where men come in. Men chance it, hey, they say, let's see how far this can go. And it goes really well and really far. So just doing it, starting, being consistent is the best thing ever in the world. And I know I've been speaking about discipline quite a bit, but that for me, I believe consistency and discipline work out far better than talent, because who's going to see your talent if you're not consistently being active in it or you're not being disciplined?
I don't know who needs to hear that, but please take notes, eh? Like you have the talent, but you're going to need consistency and discipline.
Yeah.
Siba, thank you so much for joining us today. Hey, like I wish we had more time. You and I could speak the whole day.
Yes. Yes.
Guys, as usual, I will include Siba's details, her pages, if you want to follow her online, if you want Siba to manage and do your PR. Because again, this is more than a podcast. This is our directory where you can actually go find Black-owned young businesses that are owned by young people and also women, where we can support each other. And beyond that, this is a place where you can get inspired and find your people. This is a community of young Black people who are doing great things. So until next time, please take care of yourself. I am.